Well, alrighty then. Welcome to the Quixotic Heights podcast, where dreams take flight. This is a show where we dive deep into the minds behind the stories that move us. And I'm your host, Amy M. Lee. I'm thrilled today to be joined by a very special guest, Michelle Dutch. She's the author of three compelling and emotionally rich novels, Mary McKenzie, Broken Dolls, and Nana Banana. And Michelle's writing explores resiliency, identity, and the complexity of human relationships, all delivered with a distinct voice and unforgettable characters. Whether you're already a fan or just discovering Michelle's work, you're in for a thoughtful and inspiring conversation. And with that, welcome Michelle to Quixotic Heights.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. I always love me some Amy Lee. I'm very excited to be here this morning.
Oh, good, good. And where are you calling from, Michelle? Let the listeners know.
I am in a city called Everett on the West Coast, just about 30 miles north of Seattle, Washington. So we're in the great Pacific Northwest.
Lovely. And the weather's been great this week, so that's fantastic. And you and I met at the Pacific Northwest Writers Association conference recently.
Yes, we
That was
did.
that was a blast. So anyways, welcome again to the show. Tell us a little bit about your Quixotic Heights dream.
I want to be writing full time. Right now, I'm working a rent job, which is exhausting. But my dream is to continue writing. I have several books that I finished that are in the pipeline that I'm submitting, and I just want to write. I just want to write and publish. That's all I'd like to do for the rest of my life.
What inspired you to be a writer, Michelle?
When I was young, I had a friend that I met across the courtyard in an apartment complex. She was 2 years older than I was. And we actually started writing scripts with each other for our favorite television show. And that continued on as we got older and we moved farther and farther apart, and we would exchange these scripts in the mail. And I also, like when I got into high school, I had another friend that I started doing the same thing with, that we were writing television scripts for the shows that we were watching at the time. So I've always written. I love storytelling. I love making interesting twists and turns and this, that, and the other stuff. That's my kind of writing. I write what I want to read, the kind of stories that I want to read.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. That's the way it should be, right?
Absolutely.
So what were some of the shows that you watched that you were writing scripts for? And did you ever submit them to the network?
Okay, so we started writing the original Star Trek. Kind of ages me a little bit. And I think when we were in high school, we were doing Brides for Brothers. I can't remember the exact name of that show, but we just wrote about, all the teen Bobby Sherman and all that kind of stuff back then. We were madly in love with all these teen dreams. And so we would write stories that would surround those characters as if they were in our life.
Oh my gosh. Do you still have any of those scripts? Because that would be fun to pull back out.
No, I absolutely wish I did. I lost a house in 2012 and lost a lot of my early writing when that house was sold out from underneath us. So that's a sad part. But now I make sure that I back everything up to the cloud.
Smart. Yeah, we have that technology now, right?
Absolutely.
You mentioned Star Trek, and I learned this recently that Lucille Ball was the one who initially funded the production, because when it first came to her, came across her table, a lot of the networks were like, no, this is too weird, bizarre. We're not gonna, we're not gonna fund this production. And her production company, said, yeah, we're going to greenlight this. We're going to do it. She took a huge risk, but she saw potential in it. And so, and it's funny too, because, I look at your hair, for example, it's very red copper, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And it just made me also think of Lucille because, that was her signature hair color. it wasn't natural, but once she
Yeah.
dyed it, it became her brand, you know, and so she had to like keep on keeping. Um, but
She's
anyways,
one of my heroes. She actually did a lot of television. I mean, she did a lot of movies in her youth. Some really incredibly fabulous acting jobs. She's she is like a hero to me because she went places in the business and in the craft that other women didn't have the opportunity to go there, and she continued to maintain her professional integrity and her ideas of creativity. She thought out of the box constantly. And I think that's what made her such a huge and incredible success.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. She was a trailblazer and she stood in her own power. And I'm obviously a big fan because when I first came to the United States, you know, as a young immigrant, I was 5 years
Mhm.
old. That's how I learned English, watching these slapstick comedies. I didn't always understand the words, but I understand the body language, right?
Mhm. That's right.
And yeah, I love Lucy. My mom and I would sit there and watch, you know, religiously. But anyway, so big fans of Lucille Ball. So tell us a little bit about the journey that you went through from the first book, you
Uh-huh.
know, when you actually wrote and published your first book to your third one, and now even beyond because you're working on other projects.
The first book I actually wrote was Nana Banana, and that is based on two of my grandchildren, Grace and Marcus. And it's a funny story about about that. I was always called Nana versus Grammy or any of the other things like that. And Marcus was a very precocious 2-year-old. Okay. He was like the one grandchild I called scary smart because this kid picked up and there was no baby talk. Okay. He spoke very clearly and precisely. So one day he's sitting in the high chair and he's eating banana, and he was saying the word banana because he really liked all the consonants and that kind of stuff. And then he looked at me directly across and he goes, Nana, banana, Nana, banana. And he started laughing hysterically. And in that moment, that's when the idea, I thought, okay, well, I'm writing. I should be writing for this, you know, this marketplace.
Oh,
And that's where the original idea for Nana Banana came from.
that is so, so sweet. Oh my goodness. And it is a fun word to say, actually, banana. You know, it's just
I have
he's a
several
smart kid.
tongue teasers in the book,
Yeah.
Mr. Schnitzel, Schnauzer, and other things like that,
Wow.
because I was dyslexic as a kid, and at that time there was not really very many programs for children who had that issue, and so tongue teasers, twisting words and things that sounded similar was a good way for me to memorize things. And I would memorize everything that I had to read in case I couldn't figure out what the words were when I was reading,
Wow.
because they made you read in front of the group when I was a kid growing up. We
Yeah.
had in reading group, you had to take out the book and go, okay, it's Tommy's turn. Okay, it's Michelle's turn. And I had a really rough time in the beginning. So I had to come up with workarounds for myself so I didn't get embarrassed. I was very, very shy as a child.
Well,
So I
yeah.
put a lot of tongue teasers and twisters in the book, and for specifically for that reason.
I love that you went from the dyslexia part, you know, as a child
Mhm.
to growing up to being a writer, which really speaks to how powerful we humans are when we put our minds to things, you know, and not give up. Because when there's a will, there's a way, but also, you know, there's different solutions to a problem.
Yeah, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
very beautiful. So tell us a little bit about the writing process in terms of how it has evolved, you know, from your first book to today. Do you see that difference?
Yeah, there is a big difference. Right after I published Nana Banana, my husband, 20 years left, and I lost my house. And so I found myself back in a hardworking, like I'd had other jobs and things like that, but I wasn't working at the time. So I kind of had to sell everything, put stuff in storage, and not be with my writing for probably, I'd say, about 8 or 10 years. And so when I moved up here to be with my parents, part of that was my kids were out of the house. Most of the grandkids were on their way. It was time for me to work on myself and do my stuff. So the Mary McKenzie series started coming to me because up here in the Pacific Northwest, this is creativity central. You can go down to the shoreline or up to the mountains, or you can go to the city, or you can be in some of these small towns. And all of that kind of creates this atmosphere for creativity. At least it does for me. So I started thinking about Mary McKenzie as soon as I got up here. I had to find a job and work and kind of get back into that rhythm, because if you're going to work as a writer, you have to have a rhythm. It means that you try and write at the same time every day. You try to have a process that you go through, and that's different for every writer. You know, there's no one formula for people. So a lot of times storyline will live in my head for a while, and I'll go over and over and over it, and then I'll go to the computer and sit down and write. I'm not good about outlines. I suck at outlines. I suck at query letters, and I suck at synopsis. You want me to write? I can sit down and write. I'll write you a movie script. I'll write you a novel. I'll write you whatever you want. Please don't make me write a query letter.
Those are the hardest, the little bites that you have to do, the query letter, you have to do the book blurb or a synopsis. You know, those are so much harder than just writing your whole,
I know.
Novel.
It's the truth. So I had actually started messing around with a little bit when COVID hit. And so the problem was that that book, Mary McKenzie, is all centered up here in the Pacific Northwest. And I couldn't go to those locations because I feel like a lot of times if you're going to write about a location, you should go and stand there and see what it feels like and that kind of stuff. And I had made side trips. Of course, I've been to Seattle. I was here for the first time in 1962 with my mother and grandmother. For the World's Fair.
Yes, I was going to say.
So, yeah, I'm saying that probably had a huge influence on me then. So I'd been to Pike Marketplace, and I'd been to the San Juan Islands, and I'd been around, which is where the book is all centered around. And actually, the end of the book came to me first. The scene of where she's being dragged through Pike Marketplace by the killer. I had that first. So then I had to go back and rebuild it, and the initial attack in the beginning. But I had to depend on Google Maps to, they actually have pictures of locations. So I'd move the camera around so I could see where I was writing, because I have them walking through towns and going into businesses and looking at cameras and security and all the rest of that kind of jazz. So I was still working at the time. I work at a lab during the daytime. And so our hours were cut drastically because of COVID. So I had a lot of time to go home and write at night. And that was my first attempt. Well, not really. I wrote a romance novel 1,000 years ago. But that was really my first attempt at getting into the writing stuff. And I had submitted it to a publisher, and they said yes. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay.
You were prepared for the 90 rejections that are going to come your way?
I really was. I thought, because I had beta readers and stuff like that. And everybody said, oh, my God, this is really good. And I'm like, okay, sure. I didn't really believe them. But as we got along, and I read voraciously. I mean, I read probably 2 to 3 books a week. And I read what I write. So I read romance novels, and I read murder mysteries. And, like I love Kathy Reichs, and I love Patricia Cornwell and the science that goes along with it. Sure. So I try to be as technically accurate as absolutely possible. So I do as much research for the book as I do writing the book.
Yeah.
I got the books that the FBI uses for profiling, and I went and read through all of those before I started writing about profiling itself. And then I did a whole bunch of research on documentaries and other things about how profiling started, which was basically with the Atlanta murders, child murders. many years ago, and then how it is today. And because it's a new science, it's constantly evolving, as is the FBI. So
Yeah.
I wanted to be as accurate as possible. And it was interesting because one of the writers groups for Pacific Northwest Writers Association was a former FBI agent.
Oh,
So
love it.
when I was reading a chapter to him, like in the group, he said, FBI, you're writing about the FBI. How do you know about the FBI?
How do you know about the FBI? No, just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, he really got in my face. So I had to laugh about that. And I said, well, because I did my due diligence, I went and I read the books and I read the procedures because it's available. The information is out there and available. So you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I documented for him that I knew what I was talking about. And he said, okay, well, you're accurate in what you're doing. And I went, all right.
I hope we wrote a review for you. That's amazing because, people who are not published authors or who are not writers and they're the readers, or whatever, they don't realize how much time is put into these books. Even a children's book, is it like we talked about how hard it is to write fewer words than it is to write, more words.
Right.
I think children's books are really hard because you really have to follow the parameters of, okay, 200, 500 words, whatever, and you have to do this story, right, in that short amount of, but yeah, there is a lot of research, and I'm so impressed by you, Michelle, because I agree that, writers have to read a lot in order to be good writers. And
That's right.
it sounds like you're a pantser, which I am too. I let the characters kind of dictate the story and just tell me how to write them. I don't plot anything either.
No.
When I was first starting my journey, as a writer, which was Snow in Vietnam, I would just sit there and stare at a door, for example, and I would focus on that. It's like, okay, I'm going to write down all the details that I see about this door. When I went to Vietnam and actually traveled there, because that was the location of, the setting for me, I just took in all the sights, the sounds, the taste, the smell, right? And you really do have to do the show versus tell to immerse your reader into that story. So Mary McKenzie sounds like an amazing story. Can you give us a little bit of the premise of that book? What's that about?
Absolutely. Mary McKenzie herself is a very world famous romance writer. So she's very well known throughout the world and that kind of stuff. She, after a book launching, this is at the very beginning of the book, she is attacked by a serial killer and almost dies. She is his only victim who survives. And so he literally becomes obsessed with her. So this ends up being a 13-book series. And I know it's odd that people say, how do you know it's 13 books? And I said, well, because they're all here. They're all in my head. Okay. So that's the beginning of it. And she not only survives, but she comes back, she writes and goes on from there. And unbeknownst to her, he's still following her. And he follows her through all 13 books. And he's in her life, but she doesn't know it. She has a crack team with her brother, Rick, who is a very famous architect in his own right, and is gay and is just such a wonderful support for her. She has Heggie, my beautiful, tall, blonde, I'm missing the word, protection. She has all of her protection around. She's better protected than the president. Okay. When she goes out to do her book signings and all the rest of this kind of stuff, while the serial killer is sending people to try and scare her and spoof her and do all the rest of this kind of stuff, Heggie's always there. Then she actually meets a profiler who is doing her case. And it's like the thunderbolt moment for the both of them. And they fall madly in love. And of course, it's like, no, you're not supposed to be involved with the agent who's covering your case and vice versa. But there's a lot of humor to it. I like to put clay feet on my characters. So he's constantly being put into situations where normally he's a very professional person, but then, there's Mary. showing up where he least expects it and doing things that kind of just really set him off kilter. So the first book is about how they just fall madly in love while all this chaos is going on around them. The thing about the books is all of the characters in the books have met each other at a different time in life, but that's not revealed until we go further and further along in the series. And how deeply this organization of serial killers, because I've set that up, an underground organization of serial killers, also help each other to kind of keep track of her and everything that's going on in her life.
Interesting. Yeah. How many books have already been out in this series?
There are 2. Mary McKenzie and Broken Dolls is the second book in that series. Okay. I've finished the 4th book, Sacrifice. I'm pitching it now. I've finished finished the teepees. I need more editing on that, but that's the 4th book. And I've already started writing the 5th book, which is Red. And that's about the serial killer himself.
Okay. And are you going to be pitching to the same publisher?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Got it. We won't go there. That didn't sound good.
No, it wasn't, and it hasn't been. So yes,
well,
I need it.
Let's unpack that a little bit, because there are a lot of writers who, have that passion, that fire, and sometimes they'll self-publish, and some get it right, some get it wrong. Sometimes they'll go to a vanity press, but they don't realize it's a vanity press, until they're deep in the water and they're drowning in that situation. Yes. So let's help these writers not fall into these traps. What tips do you have for these new writers?
First, I'm going to say get involved with other writers, because there's no knowledge that's better than people who have the experience of going through this. The second part would be to get involved in a writers organization like Pacific Northwest Writers Association. When they hold a conference, they hold a conference, and you have access to every kind of information that you want. You want to know publishers, they bring publishers, they bring agents, they bring, book editors and other people like that who can really tell you about the market. And it doesn't matter what genre you're writing in, because the one thing I learned since I started getting into this is there is a publisher for every genre of writing, whether it's from self-publishing all the way up to a real Random House or something else doing that. The thing that you do as a new writer have to understand is there are 1,000 scammers out there who are more than eager to take your money to edit your book or beta read it or write a review or do these other things for outrageous amounts of money. I've even had, I remember one organization that kept calling me and saying, we're going to put your book information in Times Square on the reader for $3,000.
It's going to cost you $10,000.
Yeah, $3,000. Really? You are? Wow.
Yeah.
So, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Okay. And I have to tell you, the best thing is I was made an offer for a television script or to buy the first book, Mary McKenzie, to make it into a television movie. And when they approached me, they were asking for a lot of money. And I said, this doesn't seem right. And fortunately, I had contact with 3 of the agents that I had met at Pacific Northwest Writers Association. I shot a quick email to them and said, please help me. If you don't have time, I get it. I totally appreciate it. You're not representing me, whatever, but I met you at the conference and this is what's going on. And I think this is screwy and the contract looks weird. Is this a yes or a no? How do you feel about it? And all 3 of them answered me back, all 3 of them. And all of them said, no, this is fake. This is not real. I don't feel comfortable with this. I wouldn't advise it. And from the bottom of my heart, I appreciated them so much for that. And it just emphasized the fact that you have to be with other writers, real people who are in the business and who are interested in helping writers. You have to have that wisdom, because you can't just pull that out of the hat. You can't go to the internet and get that information. You need the personal touch of people like this.
Yeah.
So just be cautious, be wise about what you're doing,
Yeah.
because just because you have a signed contract, that doesn't mean that they're going to honor the contract. And it doesn't mean that, if you want to go after that, you could be spending thousands of dollars getting a lawyer to go after the things that they promised they were going to do and didn't.
Yeah.
You have to be wise.
There's definitely a lot of scammers, and they're so savvy, and when your heart is like really wanting to publish this book, it's hard to decipher who's legit
Yes.
and who's not, and one of the things, I give presentations on this too, but it's like you have to go to like Reddit, you have to go onto Google and type in the representative's name or the company's name and put scam or whatever,
Right.
find your search engine. And the other thing too is, I also say that a lot of times when you go onto their website, the reviews are, of course, glorious reviews, right? But it's only on their website. Do you find those reviews anywhere else? No. And so that's also a flag. And of course, if they're really aggressive, they're really salesy, they want to, they just keep on wanting to sell you stuff. That's also a huge red flag. But okay, let's move on. Because I can go down a rabbit hole with vanity presses and with scammers and okay, so give me a little bit more about Broken Dolls. I know that's the second book in the series, but a little teaser.
Yes, little teaser. Griffin leaves Mary for a brief period of time to go to Arizona to work as a profiler on a serial killer who is working on the Hopi and Navajo nations reservations. Part of the storyline for that is, if you look at a map, the Hopi reservation is completely surrounded by the Navajo reservation, like an island in the middle of this. And that struck me so much. They are the only nation to not sign a treaty with the United States. And that kind of heroism to me was huge, spoke volumes. So my serial killer in that book is a child who is half Hopi, half Navajo. And it's kind of a little bit about his journey in that too, as Griffin is looking for him. And the picture on the front I did the artwork for is like a child's drawing. Kachina dolls are used to tell and instruct Native American children about their beliefs and stories and histories and the gods they have. And they use those small dolls to do the storytelling. In the Hopi language, there is no CH sound. So they call them katsinas. So the doll on the front is the serial killer as a child. He's broken and he's wounded and doesn't identify with either culture and yet is steeped in both. It's a very exciting ending to that book. I don't want to do the spoiler.
Don't give it away. Our listeners to read it.
But the ending, I had people call me the next morning and go, "Darn you, I stayed up till 3:00 in the morning reading the end of the book."
That was designed. That was by design.
Absolutely. I'm a big cliffhanger kind of girl. Cliffhanger kind of girl.
Okay.
So, I mean, a lot of that is, it's the storyline for me is always about heroes. It's about people who fight against odds that are unbelievable. It introduces 2 new characters that'll go on in the future books. And it's an exciting, some people are mad at me at the end of the book, but it's okay.
I can imagine that requires a lot of research and a lot of maybe even interviews too. Did you have sensitivity readers because your character is, Navajo and
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. There is no Hopi English Hopi dictionary. Okay. There is one university that has Hopi to English, but it's a book that you have to sign into the university's library. You can only stay on for 30 minutes at a time.
Oh,
and
no.
Yeah, like I said, it goes Hopi to English. So you kind of have to know the Hopi word you're looking for to find the English translation. That was where I spent a lot of my time because I swore I was going to stick to their traditions and histories and information and using the correct words. That was vitally important to me. Yeah. And through that research, I just garnered more and more respect for them as a culture and as a people. And they're just awesome. They're just awesome people. I just love them.
Yeah. What's your heritage and background, Michelle?
I'm a white girl.
A European.
I am so white. It is just Scottish, French, English. Yeah, that's it. And if you look at my genome, that's it, baby.
Okay.
Own it. Own it.
Okay. Absolutely own it and be proud. Okay, so let's talk about your personal influences.
Okay.
Who are the people that shape you as not only a person, an individual, but as a writer?
I come from a pretty eclectic family. I like to say my family is blendered, not blended. I have 7 stepbrothers and stepsisters. I have 4 half-sisters, if that kind of gives you an overview. I have 35 female cousins just on my grandmother's side. We're survivors. We're people who did the Conestoga wagons. We're the people who were dirt poor but raised ourselves up. I come from a really diverse line of mouthy women. We've always been resistance fighters, and I have a huge, almost everybody in my family has been in the military or is related to military people. That's had a huge influence on me. Also, I traveled for over 20 years as a missionary to Mexico, to Cuba, to Africa, Australia, New Zealand, China, India, all of these different places. And that really influenced me greatly because you look at the conditions that other people live in, and then you come back to the United States. And for me, it was a place of gratitude that a woman could walk down the street and not be afraid. Well, it used to be. I don't know how it is nowadays, but you know what I'm saying, that we're not bound by the culture and morals of other countries that can be just devastating to women. So I think all of those things, looking at people's condition, and because I worked mostly with children, I have a real heart for people lifting themselves up and coming out of a bad situation and making themselves better, even if it's a little bit more, and helping the next generation get even higher up in that. I think I was one of the first people to graduate from college. My mom had an AA. I put myself through college mostly, and from there I tried to encourage my brothers and sisters to do the same thing. Wow,
that's fascinating. I never knew that about you, which is why we have this podcast. It's selfishly really for me, not for the listeners at all. Thank you for sharing that story and doing the work that you've done and continue to do. So thank you. But anyways, so I've got some fun rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Okay. Just answer as the first thing that comes to your mind. Ready? Okay. I got a few, so here we go. Pen or keyboard?
Keyboard.
Morning lark, day robin, or night owl?
Night owl.
Favorite writing snack?
Cookies.
What kind of cookies?
Oh, chocolate of some kind.
Me too. What's the book that you wish you had written?
Probably Outlander.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. First thing you do when you have writer's block?
Change genres. Go to a different kind of book, or short. If you're writing a novel, go to short story. If you're writing poetry, go back to a book. Just change genres.
Coffee, tea, or something stronger?
Coffee, maybe with something stronger if I'm writing a scene that's difficult.
What is your writing style in 3 words?
Precise, awe, fear.
Okay, we already established this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Plotter, pantser, or plancer?
Probably pantser. I don't know those words, but I pretty much fly by the seat of my pants. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's me too. I think we're the same. We're cut from the same cloth there. Okay. What is your ideal writing retreat location? Your dream location?
That would be a log cabin in the mountains.
Okay, you and I are going to write together. Except mine's got to have a lake too. But log cabin for sure.
Hey, my cousin has one near Lake Wenatchee, so we're in, baby.
Let's go. No, I'm serious. Let's go.
Totally.
Yeah, I'd love cabins the other day in Missouri in the Ozarks,
Yes.
Like these beautiful 4,000 plus square foot log home. But I was like, okay, owning one and maintaining one is a lot different than just going there and,
Yes.
having a treat.
That's why baby Jesus made the Airbnb.
Yes. What's on your desk when you're writing?
I have a picture of my grandmother, Helen Marnett, who brought 6 of her kids out here from Spirit Lake, Iowa to California to get out of that environment. Okay. She self-educated as a nurse in the little tiny town that she lived in, where during the winter time there would be 3 feet of snow, and the women in town looked down on her because she wore pants to walk to work.
Oh, wow!
So she's my hero.
Oh. Okay, so if your books could be turned into a movie, who would play the lead roles?
I had a hard time with this because I don't know. It has to be based around Griffin because he's so handsome. It's like, there's my romantic.
Who's your eye candy these days?
Yeah, really. I mean, well, of course, the actor from Sam Heughan, but I think that's not probably the guy from Lucifer, Tom.
Yes.
Yeah, he would make a great Griffin. And when I did a different interview, there were a couple of people who suggested redheads for Mary. But my other character that would really be necessary is, Heggie is 6 foot, blonde, and, she's buff because she worked for private service. So, there used to be that actress, Brigitte, whatever her name was, and she would have been great unless she has a daughter or a granddaughter.
Yeah.
I have a very physical sight and thought process in regards to what they look like. So, I mean, it would be kind of difficult.
Have you ever checked out Story Rocket?
No, but see me writing it down.
Yes. So, my friend Ana Benitez is a co-founder of Story Rocket. She's a 2-time Emmy award-winning producer, just really well connected. But she and another person started Story Rocket as a platform for writers to put their books on there with the hopes that producers, showrunners will see it. And you get to put together a Story Rocket packet, like a press packet. And one of the things you do is pick out who your lead is for this. And it's actually pretty fun to put together, but it's a membership thing. It's an annual membership thing. But there are some great opportunities with Story Rocket because you get to potentially, pitch to a producer. You get to attend these these trainings or these conference or workshops online, and they're free usually. Not all of them, but some of them, most of them are free. And it's just a way to get plugged in and see how things go and connect with other people on the platform. But anyway, something to check out. Okay,
Absolutely.
so another question for you is if you could title your autobiography right now, what would it be?
Life in the fast lane.
Who would play you?
Oh my God. Somebody skinnier, God, I hope. Whatever that thing is where people who are anorexic see themselves always as being too heavy. I'm in the opposite direction. I'm way heavy, and I always think, aren't I smaller than that?
I see it every day when I look in my mirror. That is one of those slimming mirrors. I literally own 2 of those. That's my little secret. Anyways, because I see myself in that mirror and I walk out feeling confident, even though I know that I'm a little bit heavier than that, but that's okay. Okay. As we wrap up here, are there any topics, anything that we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
No, my desire is to get this series out there as much as possible. I'm hoping that within the next month or 2 here that we can really get Sacrifice out, because I'm getting a lot of pressure from the people who've read the first 2 books, and it's kind of like, where's the next book? Where's the next book? Come on. And I mean, like, I've edited it to death. Okay. So there's no use going back to edit it anymore until it goes to the publisher and they say, okay, I'd like you to change this or do that. So it's time for me really to start working on the 4th book. I just really appreciate you and everything that you've been doing. You've been a real encouragement to me, Amy, and have kept me going quite a bit in the last couple of months. So I want to thank you.
Oh, Michelle, I'm giving you a virtual hug. And I don't know if I'll be at PNWA this year, but if I do, and if you're going to be there, even if you're not going to be there, I'll find a way to go to Everett, or you and I can go to that cabin in the woods somewhere.
Sounds like a great idea.
We'll have our own conference. It's been a joy getting to know you, Michelle. I'm so glad that we met, and I'm in awe of your persistence and your passion. I love your tears because that is authentically you, and that's always the way that you present yourself. So keep doing what you're doing. So you're a huge blessing. Thank you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed today, and I'm really looking forward to. I've been talking about you on all my social media sites about the Quixotic Heights podcast. So good luck. Good luck with this.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we've got we're in our infancy stages. We're still figuring things out, but it's been a true joy talking to you. So with that, listeners, that was Michelle Dutch. Excuse me. Always insightful, always authentic, always endlessly creative. You've got so much going on. So, folks, if you haven't yet picked up any of the Mary McKenzie books or Nana Banana, I encourage you to do that. I just love saying Nana Banana. I'm just going to say that all day long. Please pick up her books. Go ahead and write a review because, as you know, reviews put food on the table and they help other readers to take a chance on a new author that they've never heard of before. So until then, please rate our episode too. If you really enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe. Help us grow for Quixotic Heights, where dreams take flight. And then until then, keep reading, stay curious, and never stop asking those questions. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you, Amy.
Bye.
Bye.